Okay, good morning or good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be on this show. Okay, I have a few questions, funny questions, I would say, to ask Duane. Okay, Duane, I met you on the real side many years before meeting you on the outer world. And at the time, I classified you as a strange master with some wonderful powers. So, what I want to ask is, would people be wrong to classify you as a master, seeing that what you are presenting goes with some enormous mastership? So, I want to ask whether you are not too restrictive of the use of that word master. For instance, one of the persons you call master, Sandashan Singh, he says it is the master who awakens us, who teaches us, who reaches out to us, takes us by the hand, and raises us to our feet. And when you have done this to many people, so if some people want to call you master, what would you say? What would be your reaction?
There wouldn't be a reaction, Charles. Hello, Charles. Here's the idea. Okay, so I would say that most of us have had parents, mother and father. And as your parents raised you, did you look to them as masters?
No.
No, of course not. And so again, we've went through these ideas already. Okay, these are the old ideas that still exist, but they're actually in other dimensions, even though you see them. And this is where people see into other dimensions. And as you see other people with the ideas that they hang on to, they stand in those dimensions, you see. And so again, people have knowledge, but do they have awareness of the knowledge that they have and how they're using it? Well, for the most part, they don't. And so I see that had its place at a time, and no more, because no, it really has kept people subordinate to the ideas of whatever they agree to, and I just don't see it that way. What I see is representing the real guides and the all is, creating references, and simply managing what I've created here to share with others. That's how I see it. And so if people want to step up and take part in, doing the same thing with what they're comfortable with, great. But no, not at all, because that that places the individual in a particular, and you see that most of these so-called masters and whatever, they're still doing the stage routine, or they're set up a particular way. If you've noticed the years since I've done this, I don't do any of that, because again, it's not my thing. If it's just like the birds, I don't see the birds doing it. On the beach, I don't see them circled around one seagull, etc. And so, on the real side, when something is demonstrated, that can happen. I've been in the center, and the boys have been around, and others have experienced this. Well, that's of a particular. Okay, so again, that's they're demonstrating that, okay, this is what we're looking to right now. And so again, I see my position as management. That's it. I'm just Duane, and I have my awareness accordingly, and I create references, for the real guidance and the real education, and for the all is. It's really that simple. It's really kind of cool how simple it is. And so the old stuff, Everybody that likes to be followers and members, or chelas, initiates, or whatever. Again, it's we've gone through this process just like we went through school, through the 1st and 12th grades. It's a process we went through, and finally we got through that part. But to continue on with these ideas and cubicleize people into that, no. I just like to be known as really Duane. We have these other things like the New Men and Duane the Great Writer, but these are just ideas that are presented to people in the world. But the true reality life is the isness. It's the new nowness. It's the isness now. That's all that matters. Everything is the isness. And wake up, use your awareness and not just the knowledge. You'll see that many people just cling to knowledge. They think the knowledge is the reality. Well, it's not. And as a very good example, and that's why I asked Claudie and Sandy to be witnesses when Marjorie Klemp, former wife of Harry, passed over. Take a look at her in the real side and see what's happening. Well, she had a little light around her. That was the knowledge that she had. But she didn't have the awareness to deal with her situation because that's all she looked to. So, this master thing, the masters are delivering what? Old wisdom, pretty sounding words, etc. And people collect these ideas, they pin them on their wall. But it's not about the awareness of recognizing the is. It has nothing to do with that. They just think things are pretty sayings. And yes, there are good people out there, but do they have the awareness to see more than just what they've created and the ideas that they cling to and agree to that really, for the most part, tapline them? And they don't see that either because they don't have the awareness. So this is my real position. It's all about awareness, not about even the words that I present, because those are references and helping people to, see where they're at, because they have to go through their personal self first. And so, again, those references of masters, gurus, and any of these things, politicians, spiritual, and, we know this. No, they don't relate to what we're doing because, again, when the birds do it, I'll think about it. But other than that, I don't see where it applies anywhere. These are just ideas that people cling to, and we don't need them anymore. So if you want real freedom, you don't need any idea. Learn to recognize the is. So there you go, Charles.
Yeah, Duane, that was. I wished so many people who cling to these master ideas could, in fact, listen to what you've said, could hear what you've said, and many more will change their minds. And there are thousands of them out there who are so filled with this master-student relationship thing, and in fact, which amounts to worship of the master. The master is supreme. You have the gaze of the master. If the master doesn't gaze at you, then you are lost, and all that, See, so it's really interesting. Yeah, Duane, you often say that that Portugal's days were the babysitting days. Reason being that the world was still at its infancy, and so he introduced just the basics. Now, in the new nowness, I see you also doing a kind of new babysitting, as what you are presenting seems to fly over people's heads. In fact, the new students would also have to babysit too in order to help people grasp what you are saying. So what do you say about this, Duane? This kind of new babysitting which you seem to be involved in.
Well, as long as you brought that up, Charles, we'll have fun with it. And yes, for the most part, certain people are, and a lot of us are just bigger babies, and we need help. And so, yes, it's the next step. And also, I'm kind of upgrading things here from new students, which, it's still there in the courses, but up to onto new supporters, okay, because that's the reality of what we're doing, standing real with each other to support each other. So I started off in the true courses with a new student, but we're moving along to the new supporters, and I've changed things in one of the books I'm doing. I'm redoing book 6 here, and changing that idea because it makes more sense, just like supporting the all-natural environment. But yes, we all have to be babied along. Me too. And so, yes, if you really look at what Paul did, he simply took what existed and he just kind of put it together. And but on the real side, which most people didn't see, was that real connection to the isness. That's where they just hinted at it because the boys knew at the time it was too much for people. And even now it's too much for people. It's way too much. And this reality, this true reality, every moment is new. It doesn't wait, okay? It's like the train at the station, okay? So you've stepped up, you see it, but it doesn't wait. It takes off. You've got to run after it if you stand there and ponder it. This is where you take the risk because every moment it is new, and you decide when to get on board and start recognizing it. So it's a different position altogether. So yes, in Paul's days and prior to that, and this is where society has been brought up. People have been brought up here and anywhere in creation of a particular, and again, most people look to the idea of consciousness and really not aware enough to see that consciousness is something created. It is not the reality. And Paul used consciousness because, again, he babied people along. I don't use that because I see it for what it is. This is where I've defined your real awareness. It's very important. There is a difference. Consciousness only exists in cause and effect creation. So, to separate that and at the same time utilize it, it's very important. And consciousness deals with your personal self and the collected consciousness of people that agree to a particular position, like we are on Earth, and the systems and all these things. These form different agreements of consciousness, and most people are tap line into that agreement. They're fine with it, etc. So. Yeah, so kind of along those lines, Charles, what you're saying. Does that kind of get it, or do you have more to that?
No, that I think it is satisfactory what you said. I think, like you say, we're all babies, and Paul just made it. You also say you are a baby too. You need to be babied along. It's very interesting, and it's not like the master knows it all. So you're being very, very, very humble and modest here in your statement, which will shock people,
Yeah, let me just say something, and that is that it's just getting to the point of being real about what's taking place. And as long as we have a personal self, as long as I have a personal self here that I have to deal with, which is mainly mostly a product of the environment, which we are. We're made up of things of the earth and what we've agreed to here. And because things how they are, how they've been created, we have a lot of agreement here that we don't want to agree to, but at the same time we have to. So Yes, and from a real view outside, you might say, but right here, uh, with the whole of life and the real guides, they see this. And so, for the most part, we've been brought up to where, yes, the personal self comes first. It's like me, me, me. I want this, I want that, I want self-realization, God realization, or whatever it is, or I want to speak with the angels, or I want to meet God, or I want to be with God. But realistically, it's recognizing the whole of life and putting it first, because life is everything, and we are simply the experiencer. So to have the awareness to recognize this, and so that's the idea. And at the same time, because we're still in creation, yes, we need to be babied along. We need to share and support each other, because this is how it is here. It's a struggle. It's a lot of suffering and torment, etc. Even the La La Land stuff idea is not what it appears to be, because you're still struggling, you're still growing old, you're still breathing poison, you're still eating food that's not good for you here, etc. It's a hell of an environment. So yes, we need some of that babysitting and coddling at times. People think they can be independent. Well, fine. Life is bigger. That's how I see it. Life is bigger. Put life first. Learn to recognize what life is, and life is not creation. People look at this environment here. This is a place in life. This is not life. This is a situation we're in. That's it. And it looks to be something, but it's animated. Now, that doesn't make it good or bad. It's just what it is. And yes, we take care of things here, but the end result is a whole lot more, but you have to learn to become aware of it. That's the difference between the personal consciousness and what life is. So, yes, so it's actually uh, getting real with what life is, and it is far too real. So it is a lot. So this is a challenge for people to see that, because that personal self is a toughie. It really is, but it's possible. It's really possible. So, yes, Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Duane, for that addition. Yeah, Duane, in the religious circles, uh, it is gradually being affirmed that I will take you back to religion, to the old stuff, and make just as a reference to make my point. Yeah, it is gradually being affirmed that Jesus was a black man, and not particularly handsome as a rock star, as portrayed in many movies, where he's been reborn in the likeness and image of what people want him to be. And this is what a Jewish historian called Flavius Josephus, he says of him that both his nature and his form were human, for he was a man of appearance, mature of age, black-skinned, short growth, 3 cubits tall, hunchbacked, with a long face, long nose, eyebrows meeting above the nose, that the spectators would take fright, with scanty hair, but having a line in the middle of the head, and after the fashion of Nazareans, with an undeveloped beard. Well, the false propagators of the cult of Jesus seem to think that uh, the structure of consciousness, or let me say awareness, is somehow influenced by skin color. So what is your take on this, Duane?
Well, Charles, that was an interesting description of supposedly Jesus, and I have a question, and that is that was he also bow-legged and hairless?
Maybe we can add that. We can add that to his characters.
Had that too, yes, and he he wore other people's clothes and whatever. So and he stole the sandals, whatever. So you can add all kinds of things, and never combed his hair, brushed his teeth, and so. Uh, but I like the idea that Jesus was black. That's kind of cool. So that controversies are fun here. So yeah. So we again we've grown up with stories, haven't we? And as we start to gain real experience and start to get some knowledge that makes more sense with things, etc. So, and it's fun to play with these controversies because it kind of bothers people, so it gets them to pay attention, and it is actually part of the wake up. But yeah, Charles, have fun with that. Yes, that's a good one, and we've got our own thing going here with the visitor. And I kind of like that. That's kind of fun. We do that off and on. And Kelsey made a new movie. It's called Live with the Visitor. So that's a good one too. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Duane, you've not talked about this aspect of awareness that people are trying to link to skin color.
Again, was that the idea? So, I'm fine with everything. So the thing is that, I just listen as people, create these ideas, and it's really all fine. So then people create stories about this. It's interesting, and they make movies about it. So, everybody's on their adventure. Yeah, so I'm fine with that. I like the idea. Rebazar is dark, so many people think he's a black man. Yeah, so but he changes, and all the boys do according to the situation, and they, for whatever's necessary to provide something or a demonstration. But we're plagued, you might say, as we grow up each lifetime with old stories and really no foundation. I mean, there's basic things that happen, of course, but until we get a little older and a little wiser, you might say. I mean, those are the first things that come along to realize that, hey, this just sounds a little bit funny, and etc. So, but each person decides. They decide their life, and for most people, they'd rather just agree, and that's fine. So again, it's an adventure. We're all in life, and so, what I'm presenting here and what others are sharing, yeah, it's a risk-taking position because it's not so much about disagreement, but it's about something to, shake the tree and see what falls out, to become more aware. That's the whole idea. So, again, we've grown up with the religious or spiritual idea. And what is that? Are these the good people? Like I just wrote a group, and yeah, you have a lot of good people on the earth, and that's fine, but that doesn't mean they're aware of what life is. They're just good according to what? Yeah, so that's like good inmates in the prison, and the warden can give you little stars on your membership card to the prison because you're good, but you're still stuck and unaware. So there is a difference. So yes, we're brought something very new and real to this world. That's really cool. So yes, go Charles.
Yeah, Duane, and may I add that the body is simply a matrix for the awareness, for whether you call it for the real awareness. It doesn't really matter. People are over concerned about skin color, which is a factor of so many. It's a product of so many factors. Could be the sun, it could be food, it could be anything that has mutated the DNA or anything like that. But what people should be looking at is the real awareness. You see, so how does I'm not my skin, I'm not my body. So why this over concern about skin color? It's just could I say, an accident. But people have taken it to be something different and made a lot of fuss about it. That is my view from the new consciousness that we are developing, or that we are into.